What's up? Welcome to Breathe With Mannequin. My name is Bree. So glad to see you here today with me. So today's topic, I wanted to talk about my recent fun employment journey. Mostly the journey to the fun employment. There's a lot of stuff going on in my current situation that I'm seeing is relevant into what's going on with a lot of Gen Z people entering the job market today. Some millennials too, but definitely Gen Z. Definitely give me a like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you would please, and leave me a comment below letting me know about just what are your thoughts on the current job market. What is a fun employment experience that you would like to share? Do you have a firing story that you want to share? I could definitely use some advice and most definitely use some solidarity. So with that, we'll get right into the video. A basic overview to my situation. I started with my company 4 years ago. I started with them right at the start of the pandemic. Like it was literally, I was working there for 2 months and then we all went home. That was really exciting for me. I came from a very toxic environment. It was like toxic in the most traditional sense. I was working crazy hours, getting berated by my boss. My boss called me a hoe in a team meeting where the 2 other coworkers that were there were both men. And we did not have that dynamic. So don't think that we were cool like that, because we wasn't cool like that. Neither me and my boss or me and my coworkers. So I started working there. We all went home and we started on our COVID journey. The first year was okay. My boss at that time was the best boss I've ever had. He really tried to keep the team together. We had like little team building exercises. At first, I really wanted to like seem very knowledgeable and like I already knew everything. And obviously that couldn't last too long. One thing about me is I'm going to try to talk to my boss first. I'm never going to just like say, well, fuck it. We had a conversation and he was very understanding and he was like, oh, I didn't know you needed that from me. Here, yeah, sure, here you go. And really, I just asked for more clarity and more direction and more clear goals, because there was like this underlying vibe that he had expectations of me and I didn't know what they were. So all I did was ask. It's like, how do you want this done? When do you want this done? So I can have this done when you want it done. And he was like, oh yeah, sure. There was some drama within the company. There was a woman, she found out she was making less than the men on her team. And then my company just went into an entire cultural reset. A lot of people left the company after that happened. Someone from my team, not my boss, left in a very dramatic fashion. And then my boss left. I guess it rubbed him the wrong way. The boss that I had after him was terrible. He was not a good manager. He didn't know how to delegate. He tried to do everything himself. And I would tell him, hey, you don't have to do this. You have the team for it. The way he even became our boss in the first place was because he worked for the company for a long time, like 10 years, I think. And he had a very hands-on solo job while we were in office. And he got repurposed to our team after we got sent home. But after my boss left, he became our manager, which was a huge mistake. He did not respect us at all. He wasn't rude. He did not listen to anything we told him, which is crazy because we had been on the team before him. But we would tell him things like, we can't do this because of that, or that's not the proper protocol for this. He was a pushover. If somebody from outside the team wanted something, he would do it. Whenever we had ideas or any thoughts on efficiencies or improvements or anything like that, no, we weren't doing any of those things. He let some people on my team get away with saying some really crazy wild shit to him. And I was like, man, there's no way he's gonna fire any of us now, because if you can say that and not get fired, man, there's no way. We had a director, but I think she had some mental health issues. She took a break for maybe like a few months, and then she said she was coming back. She came back and she was like, all right, I'm here to stay. But then after 2 weeks, she was gone again, and she was gone for good. For 2.5 years, we were just stuck at the mercy of this really bad manager. His solution to something not being done the way that he would have done it was just to take that whole thing off our plate. If he asked me to make some eggs and I scrambled them instead of fried them, he's like, oh, well, instead of telling you how I want you to make the eggs, I'm just going to start making the eggs and you just won't make eggs anymore. Which is terrible. You want a boss that gives you feedback on your work and gives you clear direction on what they want. And obviously I told this boss the same thing I told my other boss. In August of 2023, we had a new person come in. He was our new director, and he was going to become very hands-on with our team. My boss had taken away all of my job duties, but he assigned me a project, and this project was very analytical. And I went and I said, I think I have to tell you something. I am neurodivergent. Basically, it was a task that was very detail oriented. It was something that wasn't rocking with me. He was like, okay. And this is the boss that gave me no work anyway. So that assignment just went poof. I never heard about it again. When this new director came in, he started like doling out these super complex spreadsheets. And I once again had to go to my boss and say, hi, I just wanted to remind you again, I struggle with projects like these. I'm neurodivergent. I really want to be useful to the team. Is there anything else that I can do? And my manager told my new director, and my new director did nothing about that. Did nothing, said nothing, nothing changed. So we just pressed on with these spreadsheets. My director's training style was bad. The job that he had us doing was something that was being done by another team prior to him being there. That's like if you're a baker and I invite you to come work at Olive Garden where you're hired to bake bread, and your boss comes to you and says, okay, I need you to make pasta today. What would you expect? Would you expect like some type of training on how the pasta is supposed to be made? I'm sure you would, right? That didn't happen. This is what would happen instead. We would be told to go make pasta. I would say, hey, I've never made pasta before. I used to say that a lot. I don't have experience with pasta. Am I going to be getting some pasta training? And the director's like, sure, come in here and we'll have a meeting about how to make pasta. So we would get in there and it would be a hours long lecture style about the history of pasta and the area of the world that it came from and all the different dishes that are used to make pasta. And then he would send me off and I would still be like, I still don't know how to make this dish. What I'm looking for is a recipe card for how to make this dish. If you want me to make fettuccine alfredo, I'm gonna need to see the recipe for fettuccine alfredo. What I don't want is some super dense Wikipedia spoken experience on how to make pasta. And I told him that. I said, can you write it down? Can you give me an example? Refused. Just refused to do things like that. And when I say refused, it wasn't like a, no, I'm not gonna do that. Well, if you really understand how pasta works and that its role and how the flavors are supposed to balance themselves, he wanted me to figure it out myself. The problem with that was this isn't school. This isn't a place of learning. I'm not here to get an education. I'm here to provide a service in exchange for payment, and it's my job and I have to do it. I really was excited when this new director came. I thought that our team was going to get a lot of direction and I thought it was going to be a really positive experience. My director put me and another coworker on a PIP, and then a month later I was fired. The PIP was filled with a lot of like moving goalposts. My manager said, use Google to figure out how to make a souffle, and I'm like, okay. So I come back and I have a souffle, and he said, I'm sorry, but you forgot to add nutmeg to the souffle. And I say, well, I didn't know that I was supposed to add nutmeg to the souffle. And he says, well, no, you were supposed to bring me a practice souffle a week ago for me to taste it, and then I could have told you that you needed nutmeg, so you failed the test. I didn't know that I was supposed to bring you a practice souffle. You told me to figure out on my own how to make a souffle on Google, and I've been spending all my time trying to learn how to make this souffle. I didn't have time to bring you a practice souffle because figuring out how to make the first one took a lot of my time. I feel like this was a manager who was coming from an outside experience. They were coming from a much more rigid company. This manager came in with the intent of firing us, is how I feel, because we didn't have a chance. Well, okay, my other coworker, let me not talk for them. They are still there. Their PIP got extended. I can't talk too much about it because it's an HR matter that I opened with the company. But long story short, the reason I got fired was I had a new manager come in. My job duties significantly changed. I repeatedly asked for help, for direction, and disclosed that I was neurodivergent. Nothing ever changed or was done about that, and I was pipped out. Someone who had been there 7 months fired me from a job that I was at for 4 years. A PIP is a performance improvement plan. It's very clear looking through the PIP, just the way that my director worded things, like when I would fail certain things, it was obvious that he was trying to fire me. He did a lot of quantifying things. He said things like, Brianna did this and it was incorrect, and I had to spend such and such hours on the weekend redoing this work, and Brianna made this suggestion which would have cost the company such and such amount of dollars. You know, like he was quantifying things so that when it came to the firing, it would be clean. At the time, I didn't think I would get fired because I really trusted my company, because my company had been so progressive up until this point. Technically, I didn't get fired from the company I got hired from. My company got acquired by a larger company 2 years into me working there. And sometime at the end of last year, my team got moved under the larger umbrella of the larger company. But I wasn't expecting it. So I had disclosed to my company that I was neurodivergent, which means I have ADHD, ADD. I was diagnosed when I was 8 years old. For most of my childhood, I was on medication and I hated it. I hated feeling like a zombie and I never wanted to be on them again. But I disclosed it to my boss because I was thinking if I don't tell him, then he won't know. And he'll keep giving me these assignments and I don't want to keep getting these assignments. I was really compatible with writing and those types of things and documentation. So I told him I really like things like this. I'm very good at these things. I don't think he really believed me when I said I was neurodivergent. I know every other person is trying to say, I have ADHD, I have ADHD. I'm not one of those people. I was diagnosed when I was 8 years old. I've had it before it was cool. His method of training was the Socratic method. It was lecture style, like a college lecture. Like he would get in front of the class, which was our team, and just talk. And when I say he would just talk, I mean he would just talk for like an hour. And somewhere in all that talking, we were supposed to find an answer. A lot of the time, an answer was not there. I told him, when I ask you a question, I really need you to give me a straightforward answer. And he just refused. I think he thought that would be giving me the answer. And how I feel about it is, this is my job. You have me on a PIP. Just tell me what I need to know so I can move on and do the next thing. It was very, very annoying when I really needed to know something. Going back to using a souffle example, it's almost like if I was like, hey, my souffle keeps falling. Do you know what's happening? Do you know what ingredient I'm missing or what step I'm missing that's causing my souffles to fall? And he's like, well, let's just think about it. If you put 2 eggs in there and you mix them like so, and the temperature of the bowl is blah, blah, blah. Those eggs came all the way from Tuscany, and Tuscany has the temperature of blah, blah, blah. So that means that the temperature of the oven should be, it just wasn't connecting, or if there was a connection, it was not evident. And what I really just needed was clear communication. Most importantly, I asked for documentation. I said, write it down. So many times. Can you write it down? Can you give me the steps? Can you record a video of you doing it so that I can see how to do it? And the whole purpose of me doing that was so that I could refer back to something later. And he would just no. So like I said, my role was shifted drastically. I frequently said, I don't have training in that. I don't know how to do that. I haven't been taught how to do that. I don't have that skill yet. He wanted me to be able to explain large data sets, and I straight up told him, I haven't been taught how to do that. He had a math degree, and I was like, that's not innate to me. You have to teach me how to do that. Just sit down with me, show me the data sets, and then just explain, like, so when you have something like this, it could indicate a couple of things. He wanted me to already know how to do that stuff. I never talked to a single person in HR until after I already got fired. There was no HR present during my firing. He pretty much brought me in and said, yes, so after going over your PIP, we've decided to end your employment with the company. And bitch, my jaw dropped because I just couldn't believe that I was getting fired after repeatedly requesting direction and training and not receiving it. I just didn't think that you could do something like that, which is why I opened a case with HR. I just didn't think that a company could do that. I did not think that it was legal for a company to drastically change your job duties, not train you, and then fire you for not knowing how to do the job. A really big issue in every job I've ever worked, the work day always felt really rigid. It felt like I had these expectations of like how I was supposed to structure my day and how things were supposed to work and how I was supposed to do these tasks and complete tasks. But it's different for a neurodivergent person than it is for a neurotypical person. Our brains are different. The wiring is different. I'm not going to sit here and go over it now, but it's different, which is why I kept telling my managers exactly what I needed. I kept saying, put it in writing, show me an example, make a recording. But my manager just wanted to talk at me for an hour. And I would state, that doesn't work for me. And that just never changed. So this is what should have happened after I disclosed that I was neurodivergent. 2 things. Either I should have gone to HR and said, hey, I'm neurodivergent, I need accommodations, and then talk to them. Or because I didn't know to do that, I thought it was enough for me to tell my manager. My manager should have gone to HR and said, hey, I have an employee that has ADHD. They said they're neurodivergent. What can I do to accommodate to them? That's what should have happened. And it did not. Training should be tailored to how a person learns. Because if you're trying to train somebody and you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole, then you're not getting anywhere. That person is not being trained and you're wasting your time. Just going back to the whole idea that my manager used the Socratic method and like to lecture and just like to talk. And I needed visuals. I don't even know how good I could have been at that role because I was never properly trained in a way that was beneficial to me. This could include more visual aids, hands-on sessions, clear step-by-step documentation for neurodivergent employees who struggle with lectures. So, sorry, I just have some notes that I wrote up here. Because I'm neurodivergent and I like to use notes to keep me on track. But yes, visual aids would have done wonders for me. Step-by-step documentation, I begged for this. Something that I learned while I was doing this, which I thought was very interesting, is something called results-only work environments, which is an environment that's focused solely on employee outputs rather than strict schedules or work hours. So something that's difficult for a person who's neurodivergent is we have moments of intense focus and we have moments of non-intense focus, right? And when you're working in a corporate environment, as friendly as my company tried to be when it was still under the smaller startups umbrella, at the end of the day, what they need is asses in seats. The idea of having to sit at a desk when you have nothing to do is soul crushing to a person who has ADHD. This could help neurodivergent people better manage their energy levels and productivity cycles. Part of why I like working from home is being able to decide when your brain is ready and available to do certain tasks. And 8 hours is just too long. It is. A lot of jobs don't have 8 hours a day worth of work available. I think what companies want you to do is work, finish it, and then just keep finding stuff for you to do, and then maybe go back to that project and then keep working on it, and then maybe go and find some more stuff to do. Ask your coworkers if you can help them with work or if somebody else has some extra stuff for you to do. But where's anyone's incentive to give themselves more work? I mean, I think some people get recognized for it, and I think some people don't. It's a risk, and you don't really know how it's gonna end up. I used to ask for more work. I said, hey, can you give me this other team, because I was used to having a larger and more robust team. And I was just like, I'll do better. And he was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. I would ask for assignments and I just would not get them because I used the exclamation point instead of a period in an email, and now I can never do it again. I think working when your brain is ready to work instead of forcing yourself to work when you are not mentally awake, or maybe you're just not mentally there. I work best at night. I'm obviously recording this video at night. When it's daytime and the world is awake and things are active, I am looking out the window. I'm like, what's happening out there? What's going on out there? You know, I really want to be out in the sunshine and doing errands that can't be done once I get off of work, you know, things like that. That's the stuff that I want to be doing, but I can't because I'm tied to this desk, because I have to be tied to this desk and I have to be on the clock. Obviously, remote work is awesome. I think you have to really be honest with yourself as to whether or not you're going to be productive at home. I think that I like the hybrid work experience, which I had just started back doing. I'm a social person, but I am an introvert, so I like the opportunity to see people at my job. We were starting to go in twice a week. That was perfect for me. Talk to your coworkers, walk around, get to be in a different place. And then that's it. I get to go home before my introversion kicks in and I'm like exhausted from having to be around people all day. Yeah, allowing flexibility in schedules and location could prevent burnout from rigid 9-to-5 schedules, obviously. Remote work options could let neurodivergent employees control their environments more. Definitely having to just sit still at a desk is really difficult. Acknowledging that conditions like ADHD can impact mental health and well-being. Definitely my ADHD has impacted my life. You feel like a loser. You do. You feel like a loser and like there's something wrong with you, and you don't know why everybody else just gets it, why everybody else is just fine working like this. And the reality is people aren't fine. People can do it. You know, there's a difference between something being easy and something being doable. what I've learned is most people who are working are not doing things and it's easy to them, but they're approaching challenges that they are able to take on and that they're able to sit down and do it. When I was doing those spreadsheets with no direction, the reason why I needed clear direction was because I kept running into roadblocks. And I kept running into obstacles. And every time I would run into an obstacle, I would have to run back to my director/manager and say, I hit a snag. And not only is that really bad for your morale, because you're constantly having to go back and ask for help. It's making you feel like you don't know what you're doing. You're wondering if everybody else is asking these same questions, if they get it and it's just you. Especially if your manager's like mine, he was very condescending. I asked a question in a meeting and he was like, what about that did you not understand? And that is very demoralizing and super stressful. But open feedback loops and advocate roles. Establishing clear processes for upward feedback without fear of retaliation. This was something that was definitely missing. Like, I got a does not meets on my last performance review, and I've always gotten to meets expectations, which I'm fine with. I was very upset and I asked why. We had our reviews in August, and he explained to me that something that I did the previous November, so something that I had done 8 months prior was the reason why I got a does not meets. And you know why he's bringing up something that I did 8 months prior? Because he never gave me any work to make up for this. I did. The mistake that I made, it was a genuine mistake, but it was also a mistake. But instead of using that as a learning experience, he just took that job away from me and I never got to do it again. And he used that as a reason for why I got a does not meet expectations. So that was my second manager who did that. My third manager / my director, when he put me on the PIP, I had to explain the situation. And I said, well, this manager was not a good manager. He said, that was disrespectful. You shouldn't say that. And I'm like, well, I don't know who to tell because it's just me. It's his word against mine. There was no upward reverse feedback situation. And the only thing I felt like I could have done was go to HR about it. And I thought about it. I had it in my bookmarks and I was really going to go to HR, but I let it go. And I was like, it's fine. I was really upset because he had not been giving me work and I didn't get a bonus because of that. If I had been able to give him something, I would have gave him a does not meet expectations. So I have here 4-day work week trials, piloting a 4-day / 32-hour compact schedule to assess productivity and work-life balance impact, especially for neurodivergent employees. This was something that I've seen Bernie Sanders talking about. I love him. Shout out to Bernie. I definitely love him advocating for a lot of these newer Gen Z millennial geared type of things. I think 32-hour work week works for some people. I think it would definitely work, especially if you were in like a call center type of situation, because you could just stagger people. I felt like I did everything right. After I came to them the first time, like early last year, apparently my manager had told one of my coworkers about a job that I would have been highly compatible with, but decided to tell them instead, and they applied for it and they didn't get it. It was not even that I would have been compatible for this job. It was something that I was already doing for our team. So the new director came, I went back to my manager and I said, I'm neurodivergent. And then he told me about the role that I would have been more compatible with, that I was already doing for our team. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, let's do that. So that's what your manager is supposed to do. When you start having concerns, your manager is supposed to be able to help you and guide you into better opportunities that align with where you want to go, right? Being a manager is about so much more than the end product. You're managing people. These are people that have emotions and thoughts and feelings. When I got fired, my insurance was canceled that day. I had to cancel appointments. My pets didn't have insurance. My second manager was the one that recommended that I start training for this other role. I said, great, let's do it. I'm excited about it. My third manager fired me before I gained the skills for that new role. So I was very upset at the way that happened. I was like, man, you couldn't let me just gradually transition. I was already in training for this other role. You had to fire my ass, and you definitely feel like a cog in the machine. And I think the issue that I had with my manager that fired me was that he had subscribed to that. This person was younger than me by 2 years. It was almost like he was a millennial that had been freaking brainwashed with this boomer crap. This man was 29 years old. This man had grays at his temples like Mr. fucking Fantastic. That's how much this man was overworking himself. I asked him why he left his last company to come to this company, and he said, I don't know how that pertains to this. And I said, well, I just wanted to know if you left that company because of the work culture, and if you thought that coming here, you would have a better work culture. Because I feel like you brought the toxic work culture from your last company here with you because you pipped me out. You came in, drastically changed the role, put me on a PIP, and then fired me. I think the only reason why he put me on a PIP was because those are the steps I think you have to take. Anyway, I don't know if this video was helpful at all. I just kind of wanted to talk about it. I don't know if I can work for another company that's going to do that to me. But that's the thing. I don't know if it was my company's fault or if it was my manager's fault. Like, should I have gone to HR earlier before I got fired? I thought that if I went to HR while I was still working under my manager, that it was gonna really fuck up the dynamic. Like, I can't go to HR on my manager and then come back to the team and he's still my manager. I think what should have happened is when I realized that the team was headed in a direction that I was no longer gonna be compatible with, I went to my manager, explained to him how I was feeling. My manager should have said, all right, let's focus on giving you these roles for now within the team, and we'll try to get you to a role that's better suited to you. Which it felt like that's what was happening, but after this person went from being my director to being my manager, he just disrupted all that and just said, fuck it. I don't care what happens to you, Mr. fucking Fantastic looking ass. How you 29 and got great temples? Anyway, I'm not trying to body shame him, but to me, he was clearly overworking himself. And I got fired because of it. Let me know what you think about my story, or let me know about your own firing story. I am honestly not really looking forward to the comments on this one because some of you have called me fat and a bitch and other things like that, and that's not very nice. And worst of all, it's not very productive. Like, I don't know how to comment to that. Thanks or not thanks. I'm just gonna start doing that. Just gonna start saying not thanks. But anyway, that's all I really have. Let me know about your opinions and your thoughts in the comments below. Please remember to like, subscribe, ding the bell, and I will see you next time.